The dust kicked up around Beatrice Lansing's worn boots as she stumbled toward the ranch house. Her hand pressed against her swollen belly, tears streaming down her face as she saw the tall rancher emerge from the barn with a rifle in his hands. She had nowhere else to go, no family to turn to, and the bank had taken everything after Thomas died in that terrible accident at the mine 3 months ago, leaving her 6 months pregnant and completely destitute in the unforgiving summer of 1882. "Please," she called out, her voice cracking with desperation as she raised her hands to show she meant no harm. "Please, sir, I need help. I am begging you for mercy. I have walked for 2 days from Hangtown, California, and I have not eaten since yesterday morning. The bank took my home, my husband is dead, and I have nowhere to go." The rancher stopped in his tracks, lowering his rifle as he took in the sight before him. He was a tall man, probably in his late 20s, with sun-bronzed skin and dark hair that fell just past his collar. His blue eyes were sharp and cautious, as they needed to be in these parts, but there was something else there too, something that softened as he saw the state she was in. "Madam," he said, his voice deep and steady as he propped the rifle against the porch railing. "You are on Quinn Sullivan's land, and you look like you are about to collapse. Come inside before you fall down right here in my yard." Beatrice felt her knees buckle with relief, and suddenly he was there, his strong arm around her waist, supporting her weight as he guided her up the porch steps. "I do not have money," she managed to say between gasps. "I cannot pay you, but I can work. I can cook and clean and mend clothes. I will do anything. Please, I just need a place to stay until the baby comes." Quinn pushed open the door and helped her to a chair in the kitchen. The house was surprisingly clean for a bachelor, she noticed through her exhaustion. He moved quickly to the pump, filling a glass with water and bringing it to her lips. "Drink slowly," he instructed, his hand steady on the glass. "When did you last eat?" "Yesterday morning before dawn. A kind woman in one of the camps along the road gave me some bread." Beatrice drank gratefully, the cool water soothing her parched throat. She looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. "I know you do not know me, and you have no reason to trust me or help me, but I am desperate. My husband Thomas died in the mines, and I have no family. The baby will come in 3 months, and I have nothing." Quinn studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he moved to the stove and began stoking the fire. "You will find more than mercy here," he said quietly, not looking at her. "You will find love in this house, Mrs. Lansing. Not the kind you might be thinking of right now, but the kind that means you will be safe, fed, and cared for. No woman in your condition should be wandering these hills alone." Beatrice felt fresh tears spring to her eyes, but these were tears of relief and gratitude. "How did you know my name?" "You told me your husband was Thomas. I knew Thomas Lansing from town. He was a good man, died too young in that cave-in. I heard his widow was struggling, but I did not realize things had gotten this bad." Quinn pulled out a pan and began slicing bacon. "You will eat first, then we will talk about arrangements. I have a spare room upstairs that you can use for as long as you need." As the smell of cooking food filled the kitchen, Beatrice felt the tension in her shoulders begin to ease for the first time in weeks. She watched Quinn move around the kitchen with surprising competence, cracking eggs into the pan alongside the bacon, slicing bread from a fresh loaf. He was handsome in a rugged way, with strong hands that looked like they had done hard work all his life. There was a kindness in his movements, a gentleness that contradicted the rifle he had been carrying and the obvious strength in his frame. "Why are you doing this?" she asked softly. "You do not know me. I could be anyone." Quinn turned to face her, leaning against the counter as the food cooked behind him. "My mother was in a similar situation once before I was born. My father died young and she was left alone and pregnant in a hard world. A rancher named Samuel Sullivan took her in, gave her work, and eventually married her. He raised me as his own son, gave me his name, and taught me everything I know about ranching and about being a decent man. He always said that kindness shown to someone in need comes back around in ways you cannot predict. I figure I owe it to his memory to do the same. That is a beautiful story, Beatrice said, wiping at her eyes. Samuel sounds like he was a wonderful man. He was. Lost him 5 years ago to fever, and my mother followed a year later. I think she died of a broken heart more than anything else. Quinn turned back to the stove and plated the food, bringing it to her with a fork. Eat up. You are feeding too now. Beatrice ate slowly, savoring every bite. The food was simple but well prepared, and she realized just how hungry she had been. Quinn sat across from her with his own plate, eating in companionable silence. When she had finished, he poured her more water and brought her a slice of apple pie that he said his neighbor had brought over the day before. "Mrs. Lansing," he began after she had eaten her fill, "I want to be clear about the arrangement here. You will have your own room, your privacy, and your dignity. I will not expect anything from you except perhaps some help around the house if you are feeling up to it, but your primary job is to rest and take care of yourself and that baby. When the time comes, I will fetch the doctor from town, and I will make sure you have everything you need. I cannot possibly accept such charity without giving something in return," Beatrice protested. "It would not be right. You can help with cooking and light housework if it makes you feel better, but you will not overexert yourself. Is that clear?" Quinn's voice was firm but not unkind. "I run this ranch mostly on my own, with help from a few hired hands who come during branding and harvest season. The house could use a woman's touch, I will admit, and I am not the best cook in the world. But your health and the health of your child come first." Beatrice nodded, feeling overwhelmed by his generosity. "I do not know how to thank you, Mr. Sullivan." "Quinn," he corrected. "And you do not need to thank me. Just get healthy and strong again. That will be thanks enough." He stood and began clearing the dishes. "Let me show you to your room so you can rest. You look exhausted." He led her upstairs to a small but comfortable room with a real bed, clean sheets, and a window that looked out over rolling hills dotted with cattle. There was a washstand with a pitcher and basin, and a small wardrobe for clothes. "I will bring up some water so you can wash up," Quinn said from the doorway. "There are some old clothes of my mother's in that trunk by the window. They might be a bit out of style, but they should fit you better than what you are wearing now. Rest as long as you need." After he left, Beatrice sank onto the bed and let out a long, shuddering breath. For the first time since Thomas died, she felt a small spark of hope. She did not know what the future held, but at least she had a safe place to stay for now. She placed her hand on her belly, feeling the baby move inside her. "We are going to be all right," she whispered. "We found a good man, little one. We are going to be all right." True to his word, Quinn brought up fresh water and left her to rest. Beatrice washed away the dust and grime of 2 days on the road, changed into one of the dresses from the trunk, which fit reasonably well given her condition, and lay down on the bed. Within minutes, she was asleep, her body finally able to relax in safety. When she woke, the sun was lower in the sky, painting the room in shades of gold and amber. She could hear sounds from downstairs, the clatter of pots and the opening and closing of the door. For a moment, she panicked, wondering if she had dreamed the whole thing, but then she remembered where she was. She was in Quinn Sullivan's home, and she was safe. Beatrice made her way downstairs carefully, holding the railing. Quinn was in the kitchen, attempting to prepare dinner with less success than he had managed breakfast. He looked up when he heard her footsteps and smiled, a genuine expression that made him look younger. "Feel better?" he asked. "Much better, thank you." "Here, let me help with that before you burn something." She moved to the stove and took over, quickly assessing what he had been trying to make. Within minutes, she had organized the ingredients and was creating a proper stew with biscuits. Quinn watched her work with obvious appreciation. "You are a good cook," he observed. "My mother taught me. She said a woman should always be able to feed her family well, no matter how little she had to work with." Beatrice stirred the pot, adding herbs from the collection she found hanging by the window. "Thomas used to say my cooking was one of the reasons he married me, though I know he was just being sweet." "Tell me about him if it is not too painful," Quinn said, sitting at the table. "I only knew him to nod to in town." Beatrice was quiet for a moment, then began to speak. "Thomas was kind and hardworking. He was 24 when he died, and we had only been married for a year. We met at a church social in Hangtown. He was not the most handsome man or the richest, but he had a good heart and he made me laugh. He took a job in the mines because it paid better than farm work, and we were saving to buy our own little piece of land. He wanted to build me a house with his own hands, plant an orchard, raise our children somewhere safe and beautiful." Her voice caught. "He went into the mine one morning like any other and he never came out. The tunnel collapsed, and by the time they dug through, it was too late. 6 men died that day." Quinn was silent, his expression somber. "I am sorry for your loss. It is not fair what happened to you." "Life is not always fair," Beatrice said, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "But we keep going because that is what we have to do. This baby is part of Thomas, and I will love this child enough for both of us. I will make sure our baby knows what a good man his father was." They ate dinner together, and the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Quinn told her about the ranch, how he raised cattle and horses, sold beef to the mining camps and towns, and broke wild horses to sell to the army and ranchers throughout California. He had built this life from what his stepfather had left him, expanding the herd and improving the land. "It is a good life," he said, "but it can be lonely. Most of the hands I hire are drifters who move on after a season or two. The ranch is far enough from town that I do not get many visitors. I go into Hangtown once a month for supplies and to conduct business, but mostly I am out here alone with the cattle and horses." "Do you ever think about marrying?" Beatrice asked, then immediately felt her face flush. "I am sorry, that was too forward of me," Quinn chuckled. "It is all right." "Yes, I think about it sometimes. But it is hard to meet women out here, and the few single women in town are usually spoken for or not interested in the ranching life. My mother used to worry about me being alone, but I told her I would rather be alone than settle for someone I did not truly care about." Over the following weeks, a comfortable routine developed. Beatrice would wake early and prepare breakfast, then spend the morning doing light housework and mending clothes. Quinn would go out to work the ranch, checking on cattle, mending fences, and tending to the horses. He always made a point to come back for lunch, and they would eat together and talk. In the evenings, after dinner, they would sometimes sit on the porch and watch the sunset, or Quinn would read aloud from books in his small collection while Beatrice sewed or knitted baby clothes. Beatrice found herself looking forward to these times together more and more. Quinn was easy to talk to, with a quiet sense of humor and a thoughtful way of looking at the world. He treated her with respect and kindness, never making her feel like a burden despite the fact that she was living under his roof and eating his food. He would often bring her small gifts from his trips around the ranch. Wildflowers he thought she might like, a smooth river stone he found that was perfectly round, a feather from a hawk. One evening, about a month after she arrived, they were sitting on the porch together when Quinn suddenly said, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me." Beatrice looked up from the baby blanket she was knitting, her heart suddenly beating faster. "Of course. What is it?" "Are you happy here?" His blue eyes searched hers. "I know this is not the life you planned, and I know you are still grieving Thomas, but are you comfortable? Is there anything you need that you are not telling me about?" "Quinn, I am more than comfortable. I am grateful every single day that I found my way to your door. You have given me safety and security when I had nothing. You have been kinder to me than I had any right to expect." She set down her knitting and turned to face him fully. "Why do you ask?" He was quiet for a moment, staring out at the darkening hills. "Because I am starting to feel things I did not expect to feel, and I need to know if I am alone in that or not." Beatrice's breath caught. She knew what he was saying, because she had been feeling it too, this growing warmth and affection that went beyond gratitude or friendship. She had tried to push it away, telling herself it was too soon, that she was being foolish, that she was just confused because he had helped her. But the truth was, she found herself thinking about Quinn constantly, noticing the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the gentle strength in his hands, the sound of his laugh. "You are not alone," she said softly. "But Quinn, I am still pregnant with another man's child. I am still mourning my husband. I do not know if what I am feeling is real or if I am just clinging to you because you saved me." Quinn reached over and took her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. "I understand that, and I am not asking you to make any decisions right now. I just wanted you to know that you have become important to me, Beatrice. More important than I expected. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I think about is seeing you at breakfast. When I am out working, I find myself hurrying through tasks so I can get back to the house sooner. And when we sit here together in the evenings, I feel more content than I have in years." Beatrice felt tears prick her eyes. "I feel the same way. It scares me a little how much I have come to care for you. I worry that I am betraying Thomas's memory, or that I am being unfair to you by having these feelings when I am carrying another man's child." "You are not betraying anyone," Quinn said firmly. "Thomas would want you to be happy and cared for. And as for the baby, I already consider that child to be under my protection. If you will let me, I would like to be a father to your child, the way Samuel was a father to me. Blood does not make a family. Love does." They sat in silence for a while, hands joined, both processing the weight of what had been said. Finally, Beatrice spoke. "Can we take this slowly? I need time to heal and to be sure of what I am feeling. But I do not want you to think I am not interested, because I am, very much so." "We have all the time in the world," Quinn assured her. "There is no rush. I just needed you to know where my heart was heading." As autumn approached, the bond between them continued to deepen. Quinn began teaching Beatrice to ride, finding her a gentle mare and patiently showing her how to handle the reins. They would ride together in the early mornings when it was cool, exploring the ranch land and talking about everything and nothing. He showed her his favorite spots: a creek where the water ran clear and cold, a meadow filled with wildflowers, a rocky outcrop that offered a view of the entire valley. Beatrice's pregnancy progressed normally, and Quinn was attentive to her every need. When her feet swelled, he would insist she prop them up while he rubbed them gently. When she had cravings for particular foods, he would ride into town to get them. He started building a cradle in the barn during his spare time, crafting it carefully from oak wood and sanding it smooth so there would be no splinters. One day in late September, a group of riders appeared on the horizon. Quinn immediately became tense, reaching for the rifle he kept near the door. "Stay inside," he told Beatrice. "Let me see what they want." Beatrice watched from the window as 6 men rode up to the house. They were rough-looking, the kind of men she had learned to avoid in Hangtown. The leader, a burly man with a thick beard, dismounted and approached Quinn with a swagger that spoke of trouble. "This the Sullivan Ranch," the man called out. "It is. What is your business here?" Quinn kept the rifle lowered but ready. "Name is Dutch Carter. We are looking for work. Heard you might be hiring hands for the season." "I am not hiring right now," Quinn said firmly. "Try the Anderson Ranch about 10 miles south. They might need help with their harvest." Dutch looked past Quinn toward the house, his eyes narrowing when he caught sight of Beatrice in the window. "Pretty woman you got there. Did not figure you for the marrying type, Sullivan. My personal life is none of your concern. Now I have asked you politely to move along. Do not make me ask again." There was a tense moment where Beatrice thought the situation might turn violent, but then Dutch laughed and swung back into his saddle. "No offense meant, friend. We will be on our way." He tipped his hat mockingly and led his men back down the road. Quinn watched until they were out of sight, then came inside, his jaw tight. "I do not like the look of those men. They will probably move on but keep the doors locked when I am out working, just to be safe." "Who were they?" Beatrice asked, her hand instinctively moving to her belly. "Drifters, probably. Men like that travel around looking for easy opportunities. They might have been hoping to steal cattle or cause trouble. We get them from time to time out here." He set the rifle back in its place and pulled her into a gentle embrace. "Do not worry. I will not let anything happen to you or the baby." Thankfully, Dutch and his men did not return, and life settled back into its peaceful rhythm. As October arrived, Beatrice's belly had grown large and she moved more slowly, but she remained in good spirits. Quinn had become increasingly protective, barely wanting to let her out of his sight. He had already made arrangements with Doc Harris in Hangtown to be available when the time came. One evening, as they sat together after dinner, Beatrice said, "I have been thinking about something and I want to talk to you about it." "I am listening," Quinn said, setting aside the harness he had been mending. "When the baby comes, I want you to be the one the child calls father. Not just someone helping to raise them, but their real father in every way that matters. Thomas is gone, and while I will always love him and I will tell our child about him, I want this baby to grow up knowing you as their father. If you are still willing, that is." Quinn was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice was thick with emotion. "Beatrice, there is nothing I want more than that. I have been thinking of myself as this child's father for weeks now. I promise you, I will love this baby as if they were my own blood, and I will do everything in my power to be the father they deserve." Beatrice reached for his hand. "There is something else. I have been thinking about this for a long time, and I am sure now. Quinn, I am in love with you. Not because you helped me, not because I am grateful, but because of who you are. You are kind and strong and gentle. You make me laugh. You make me feel safe. When I imagine my future, you are in it. I know it has not been very long since Thomas died, and I know some people might judge me for moving on so quickly, but my heart knows what it wants." Quinn pulled her close, careful of her belly, and kissed her forehead. "I love you too, Beatrice. I think I started falling in love with you the moment I saw you standing in my yard, scared and desperate, but still holding your head high with dignity. You are the strongest person I have ever met, and you are beautiful inside and out. When this baby comes and when you have had time to rest and recover, I want to marry you. I want us to be a real family." "Yes," Beatrice whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I want that too." They sealed their promise with a gentle kiss, and for the first time since Thomas died, Beatrice felt completely whole again. She had not expected to find love again, certainly not so soon, but life had a way of surprising you. Sometimes mercy and love came in the same package, wrapped up in the form of a tall rancher with kind eyes and a generous heart. 2 weeks later, on a cool October morning, Beatrice went into labor. Quinn immediately rode to town to fetch Doc Harris while his nearest neighbor, a widow named Mrs. Fletcher, came to stay with Beatrice. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the entire day and into the night. Quinn paced outside the room, his heart in his throat every time he heard Beatrice cry out in pain. Finally, just after midnight, he heard the thin wail of a baby. Doc Harris emerged a few minutes later, wiping his hands on a towel, a smile on his weathered face. "You have a son," he announced. "A healthy boy, and the mother is doing well, though she is exhausted. You can go in and see them now." Quinn entered the room on shaking legs. Beatrice was propped up against pillows, her hair damp with sweat, her face pale but radiant. In her arms was a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. She looked up when he entered, and her smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. "Come meet your son," she said softly. Quinn approached the bed and looked down at the baby. He had a thatch of dark hair and a red, scrunched face, his tiny fists waving in the air. Something shifted in Quinn's chest, a fierce surge of protective love so powerful it nearly knocked him off his feet. This was his son. Not by blood, but by choice and by love. "He is perfect," Quinn whispered, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed. "What should we name him?" "I was thinking about Thomas," Beatrice said, "for a middle name to honor his father. But I want you to choose his first name, because you are the father who will raise him." Quinn thought for a moment, gently touching the baby's tiny hand with one finger. The baby's fingers closed around his, gripping with surprising strength. "What about Samuel Thomas?" "After my stepfather and your husband." "Samuel Thomas Sullivan," Beatrice said, testing the name. "It is perfect." Doc Harris stayed overnight to make sure both mother and baby were stable, then left the next morning with Quinn's payment and congratulations. Mrs. Fletcher stayed for a few more days to help with cooking and cleaning while Beatrice recovered her strength. Quinn barely left their side, changing diapers and learning to swaddle the baby, heating water for Beatrice's baths, bringing her meals in bed. "You are a natural father," Beatrice observed one evening as she watched Quinn rock Samuel to sleep. "He makes it easy," Quinn replied, gazing down at the baby with obvious adoration. "Look at him, so small and trusting. It makes me want to be the best man I can be, so he has someone worthy to look up to." As the weeks passed and autumn deepened into winter, they settled into life as a family. Samuel was a relatively easy baby, sleeping well and eating well, growing stronger every day. Beatrice recovered from the birth and slowly regained her strength. Quinn continued to run the ranch, but now he had even more reason to hurry home at the end of each day. In late November, on a clear, cold Sunday, they traveled into Hangtown to the small church there. Beatrice wore a simple blue dress that had belonged to Quinn's mother, and Quinn wore his best suit. With Samuel bundled warmly in Beatrice's arms and Mrs. Fletcher and Doc Harris standing as witnesses, they were married by the circuit preacher in a brief but heartfelt ceremony. "Do you, Quinn Sullivan, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" the preacher asked. "I do," Quinn said, his voice strong and sure, his eyes never leaving Beatrice's face. "And do you, Beatrice Lansing, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" "I do," Beatrice said, her voice equally firm, tears of joy shining in her eyes. "Then, by the power vested in me by the state of California, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride." Quinn cupped Beatrice's face gently in his hands and kissed her, a tender kiss full of promise and love. When they pulled apart, Samuel made a small sound between them, and they both laughed. After the ceremony, they signed the marriage certificate and the papers officially making Quinn Samuel's legal father. As they left the church, Beatrice felt as if her heart might burst with happiness. 6 months ago, she had been desperate and alone, begging for mercy from a stranger. Now she was married to a man she loved deeply, with a healthy baby and a home where she was safe and cherished. The winter months were quiet and peaceful. Snow fell in the higher elevations, and the days were short and cold, but the ranch house was warm and filled with love. Quinn taught Beatrice to shoot, insisting she know how to protect herself and Samuel when he was out on the range. They spent long evenings by the fire, Quinn reading aloud while Beatrice nursed Samuel or worked on sewing projects. Sometimes they would just talk, sharing stories from their pasts, dreams for the future, small observations about their daily lives. "I never imagined I could be this happy," Beatrice confessed one night as they lay in bed together, Samuel asleep in his cradle nearby. "After Thomas died, I thought my life was over. I thought I would spend the rest of my days struggling and alone, barely surviving. But you gave me so much more than mercy, Quinn. You gave me a whole new life." Quinn pulled her closer, kissing the top of her head. "You gave me just as much. This house was empty before you came. I was just going through the motions, working the ranch because it was what I knew but not really living. Now every day has meaning. I wake up excited to see what the day will bring. I have a family, a purpose beyond just surviving. You and Samuel are everything to me." As spring arrived, bringing longer days and warmer weather, Samuel grew into a bright, alert baby who smiled easily and was already trying to sit up on his own. Quinn would take him out to the barn in a sling, talking to him about the horses and cattle as if the baby could understand every word. Beatrice would watch from the porch, her heart full at the sight of her husband and son together. One day in April, riders appeared again on the horizon. This time, Beatrice recognized the lead rider immediately. It was Dutch Carter and his men, the same group who had come by the previous fall. Her stomach clenched with fear as she quickly gathered Samuel and went inside, locking the door behind her. Quinn saw them coming and positioned himself in front of the house, rifle in hand. "I thought I told you men to move along," he called out as they approached. "We did move along," Dutch said with an unpleasant smile. "But now we are back and we have been thinking. This is a nice piece of land you got here, Sullivan. Mighty nice for one man and a woman to hold all alone. We figure you might want to sell, seeing as how dangerous it can be out here for a family man. I am not selling, and I am not afraid of you or your men. Now get off my land before I start shooting." Dutch's face hardened. "That would not be smart, friend. There are 6 of us and one of you. Think about that pretty wife and baby inside. Would be a shame if something happened to them." Before Quinn could respond, the sound of galloping horses came from the east. 6 riders crested the hill, led by a man Quinn recognized, Sheriff Tom Baker from Hangtown, along with several deputized townsmen. Mrs. Fletcher, who had stopped by earlier that morning to bring fresh bread, must have seen the trouble brewing and ridden for help. "Dutch Carter," the sheriff called out, his hand on his gun. "You and your boys are wanted for cattle rustling in 3 counties. We have been tracking you for weeks. Put your hands up, nice and slow." Dutch looked around, realizing he was outmaneuvered. For a moment it seemed like he might try to fight, but then he raised his hands, his face twisted with anger. His men followed suit, and the sheriff and his deputies quickly disarmed and tied them. "Much obliged for your timing, Sheriff," Quinn said, lowering his rifle. "Thank Mrs. Fletcher. She rode into town faster than I have ever seen a woman ride, said you had trouble out here. We were already looking for these men, so it worked out well. The sheriff tipped his hat toward the house, where Beatrice had emerged with Samuel in her arms. Madam, glad everyone is safe. After the sheriff left with his prisoners, Quinn held Beatrice and Samuel close, his heart still pounding from the close call. I am sorry you had to go through that, he murmured. I promise I will do everything I can to keep you both safe. I know you will, Beatrice said. We are in this together, Quinn. Whatever comes, we face it as a family. The incident with Dutch Carter and his men was the last real trouble they faced. As spring turned to summer and summer to fall, life on the ranch continued in peaceful prosperity. Quinn's cattle operation thrived, and he began breeding horses as well, developing a reputation for quality animals. Beatrice transformed the house into a real home, planting a garden with vegetables and flowers, making curtains for the windows, filling the rooms with warmth and life. Samuel grew into a happy, healthy toddler, learning to walk and talk, following Quinn around the ranch whenever he was allowed. He had his mother's green eyes and his biological father's dark hair, but his mannerisms and expressions were pure Quinn, mimicking everything his father did. On a warm evening in September, exactly 2 years after Beatrice had first stumbled onto the ranch, they sat together on the porch watching Samuel play in the yard with their dog, a shepherd mix Quinn had brought home from town. Beatrice rested her hand on her stomach, where another baby was growing, this one conceived in love and security. I have been thinking, Quinn said, his arm around her shoulders, about how strange life is. 2 years ago I was alone, convinced I would probably spend my life that way. And you were in the worst situation imaginable, scared and desperate. Now look at us. We have Samuel, we have another baby on the way, we have this ranch and our life together. It is more than I ever dreamed of having. You told me that day that I would find more than mercy here, Beatrice remembered. You said I would find love. You were right, but it was even better than I could have imagined. This is not just love, Quinn. This is a real life, a real family, a real future. You saved me in every way a person can be saved. We saved each other, Quinn corrected gently. You gave me purpose and meaning. You gave me a reason to be better, to try harder, to appreciate every single day. You taught me that family is not just about blood. It is about choice and commitment and showing up every day. Samuel toddled over to them, climbing into Quinn's lap with a happy babble. Quinn caught him easily, settling him between them, and Samuel leaned his head against his father's chest with a contented sigh. The three of them sat there as the sun set over the California hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. The following spring, Beatrice gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Rose Elizabeth Sullivan. She was a tiny thing with Quinn's blue eyes and Beatrice's blonde hair, and Samuel was instantly smitten with his baby sister, wanting to help with everything from feeding to changing diapers. Quinn was just as devoted, often found walking the floor with Rose in the middle of the night, singing softly to calm her cries. As the years passed, the Sullivan Ranch continued to grow and prosper. Quinn expanded the cattle operation and became known throughout the region for his fair dealings and quality livestock. Beatrice became known for her kindness, often taking in travelers who needed a meal or a place to stay, never forgetting what it felt like to be desperate and alone. She also became midwife and healer to many of the families in the area, skills she learned from Doc Harris, who had become a close friend. Samuel grew into a strong, responsible boy who loved working alongside his father on the ranch. He knew the story of his biological father, Thomas, and how he had died trying to provide for his family. Quinn and Beatrice made sure he understood that Thomas had been a good man, and that having two fathers who loved him, even though one was gone, made him special, not different. Rose was spirited and bright, equally at home in the barn or helping her mother in the kitchen. She loved horses and had a natural talent for riding, often racing Samuel across the meadows, her long blonde hair streaming behind her. In the summer of 1890, 8 years after Beatrice first arrived at the ranch, they welcomed their third child, a son they named Jacob Quinn Sullivan. By this time, Samuel was 7 and Rose was 5, and both were excited to have a baby brother. The house rang with laughter and noise, the sound of a large, loving family. One evening that fall, after the children were in bed, Quinn and Beatrice sat on their porch in their usual spot, watching the stars come out. Beatrice's head rested on Quinn's shoulder, his arm around her waist. "Do you ever think about that day?" Quinn asked. "The day you arrived here, all the time," Beatrice admitted. "I think about how scared I was, how desperate. I had walked for 2 days with no idea what I would find. I was prepared to beg, to plead, to promise anything just for a chance to survive. And then you opened your door and gave me everything I needed without asking for anything in return." "I just did what was right," Quinn said simply. "You did more than that. You gave me dignity when I had none. You gave me hope when I had given up. You loved me when I felt unlovable. And you loved Samuel before he was even born, accepted him completely as your own. Some men would have seen him as a burden or a reminder of my past, but you saw him as a gift." Quinn was quiet for a moment, then said, "Samuel is a gift. All our children are gifts. This life we have built together is a gift. I thank God every day that you walked up that road and gave me the chance to love you." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of the ranch. Cattle lowing in the distance, horses shifting in the barn, crickets chirping in the grass. From inside the house came the faint cry of baby Jacob, and Beatrice started to rise, but Quinn stopped her. "I will get him," he said. "You rest." Beatrice watched as her husband went inside, returning a few minutes later with their youngest son in his arms, gently bouncing him as he walked. Jacob's cries subsided, and soon he was cooing contentedly, his tiny hand wrapped around his father's finger. This was her life now, Beatrice thought with wonder. This beautiful, full, joyous life. She had started with nothing, had lost everything, had been reduced to begging for mercy from a stranger. And that stranger had given her a home, a family, and a love so deep and true it still took her breath away sometimes. As the years continued to pass, the Sullivan family became a fixture in the community. Their ranch was known as a place of hospitality and kindness, where travelers could always find a meal and a bed, where neighbors could come in times of trouble and find help without judgment. Quinn served for a time on the town council, helping to make decisions about roads and schools. Beatrice organized charity efforts through the church, collecting food and clothing for families in need. Samuel grew into a fine young man, eventually taking over more and more of the ranch work as Quinn's back began to trouble him in his later years. At 19, Samuel married a lovely young woman named Catherine, daughter of the general store owner in Hangtown, and they built a small house on the far side of the ranch property. When their first child was born, a boy they named Thomas Quinn, Beatrice held her grandson and cried tears of joy, thinking about how the cycle of love and family continued. Rose, true to her spirited nature, shocked the community by announcing at 16 that she wanted to train as a telegraph operator rather than marry young. Quinn and Beatrice supported her decision, and she eventually moved to Sacramento to work, though she came home often to visit, regaling them with stories of city life. Jacob, the youngest, was quieter than his siblings but had a gift for working with horses. By the time he was 15, people were bringing horses from all over the state for him to train. He had his father's patience and his mother's gentle touch, and animals trusted him instinctively. On a golden afternoon in October 1900, 18 years after Beatrice first arrived at the ranch, Quinn and Beatrice celebrated their 18th wedding anniversary. Their children and Samuel's growing family gathered for a large meal, the table laden with food, the house filled with laughter and conversation. After dinner, as the sun began to set, Quinn led Beatrice outside to the porch, leaving the family inside to clean up and visit. He pulled her into his arms, and they swayed gently to music only they could hear. "You remember teaching me to dance?" Beatrice asked, smiling up at him. His hair was more gray than brown now, and lines crinkled at the corners of his eyes, but to her, he was still the handsome rancher who had looked at her with such kindness all those years ago. "I remember everything," Quinn said. "I remember the first time you smiled at me, really smiled, not just out of politeness or gratitude. I remember the first time you said you loved me. I remember the night Samuel was born, how scared I was that something would go wrong. I remember Rose taking her first steps right here on this porch. I remember Jacob's first laugh. I remember it all, and I treasure every single memory." "We have built something beautiful," Beatrice said, her voice thick with emotion. "Not just this ranch or this house, but this family, this life. We have raised good children who know how to love and work and treat people with kindness. We have created a legacy." "We have," Quinn agreed. "And it all started with you having the courage to ask for help, and me having the sense to see what a gift you were. Best decision I ever made, letting you stay." They kissed as the sun set, the same way they had kissed on their wedding day 18 years before, with the same love and commitment, only deeper now, strengthened by years of shared joy and sorrow, triumph and struggle. The years continued to pass, bringing more changes and more joy. Samuel and Catherine had 4 children in total, filling the ranch with the sound of grandchildren's laughter. Rose eventually returned to California, bringing with her a husband she had met in Sacramento, an engineer who was helping to modernize the telegraph system. They settled in Hangtown, and Rose opened a telegraph office there, becoming one of the first businesswomen in the area. Jacob married at 22, choosing a quiet young woman named Anna who shared his love of horses, and they took over the horse breeding operation completely. Quinn and Beatrice, now in their 50s, gradually stepped back from the day-to-day running of the ranch, though they remained active in the community. They spent their days tending Beatrice's garden, taking long walks around the property, playing with their grandchildren, and simply enjoying each other's company. One evening in the spring of 1905, they sat on their porch in their customary spot. Quinn had been quieter than usual lately. His breathing sometimes labored, and Beatrice worried about him, though he insisted he was fine. Samuel had brought Doc Harris out the week before, and the old doctor, now retired, had told them privately that Quinn's heart was weakening. "I am not afraid," Quinn had told Beatrice after the doctor left. "I have lived a full life, loved completely and made a difference in the world. What more could a man ask for?" Now, as they sat together watching another sunset, Quinn took Beatrice's hand. "I want you to know something," he said. "Whatever happens, I have no regrets. These years with you have been the best of my life. You and our children and grandchildren, the life we built together, it is more than I ever deserved or dreamed of having." "Do not talk like that," Beatrice said, even though she knew what he was really saying. "You will be around for many more years yet. Maybe, Quinn said. Maybe not. But either way, I want you to know that you made me happier than I thought it was possible to be. You took my lonely existence and turned it into a life worth living. I love you, Beatrice Sullivan, more today than the day I married you, and that is saying something. Tears streamed down Beatrice's face. I love you too. You saved my life in every possible way. You are the best man I have ever known and the best father our children could have asked for. Whatever time we have left, whether it is days or decades, I will treasure every moment. They held each other as darkness fell, neither wanting to move, both acutely aware of how precious these moments were. Inside the house, they could hear their family. Samuel discussing ranch business with Jacob, Catherine, and Anna cooking something that smelled delicious, grandchildren running and playing, Rose's voice rising in laughter at something her husband said. Quinn lived for 3 more years, long enough to see the birth of his 12th grandchild, long enough to teach his oldest grandson how to break a horse, long enough to dance with Beatrice at Rose's daughter's wedding. He died peacefully in his sleep on a warm summer night in 1908, Beatrice holding his hand, with all their children and most of their grandchildren in the house. The funeral was the largest Hangtown had ever seen. People came from all over California to pay their respects to a man who had touched so many lives with his kindness and integrity. They buried him on a hill overlooking the ranch with a simple headstone that read, Quinn Sullivan, 1854 to 1908, beloved husband, father, and friend. Beatrice mourned him deeply, but she did not break. She had learned long ago how to survive loss, and she had the support of her large, loving family. She continued to live on the ranch, spending her days with her children and grandchildren, tending her garden, and keeping Quinn's memory alive with stories of his goodness and love. She lived for another 15 years, long enough to see the world change dramatically with the advent of automobiles and airplanes, long enough to see Samuel become one of the most respected ranchers in California, long enough to hold her first great-grandchild. She died in her sleep in the spring of 1923 at the age of 63, and they buried her next to Quinn on the hill. Samuel, now in his 40s, stood at his parents' graves after the funeral, his own children and grandchildren around him. They had the kind of love people write songs about, he said to his wife Catherine. The kind that lasts forever. They did, Catherine agreed. Your mother told me once how they met, how she came here desperate and alone, how your father gave her a home and a family. She said he told her she would find more than mercy here, that she would find love. And she did. They both did. Samuel nodded, remembering growing up surrounded by that love, watching his parents work side by side, laugh together, support each other through hard times, celebrate together in good times. They had given him and his siblings the greatest gift possible, a model of what true love and commitment looked like. As the family walked back down the hill to the ranch house, now in its 3rd generation of Sullivan ownership, the sun broke through the clouds, casting golden light over the land. The ranch that had been built by Quinn and expanded by his family sprawled across the valley, a testament to hard work, good stewardship, and the power of love to transform lives. Inside the house, Catherine began laying out food for the gathering, and the grandchildren ran through the rooms that had seen so much life and love over the decades. On the mantel sat a photograph of Quinn and Beatrice taken on their 25th wedding anniversary, both smiling at the camera, Quinn's arm around Beatrice's waist, her hand on his chest. They looked happy and content, a couple who had weathered life's storms together and come through stronger for it. Samuel picked up the photograph, studying his parents' faces. He had been so young when his mother first brought him to this ranch, too young to remember anything before it. But he had grown up hearing the story, understanding that the man he called father had chosen to love him, had chosen to be his family. That choice, made out of kindness and generosity all those years ago, had created a legacy that would continue for generations. He set the photograph back on the mantel and looked around at his family gathering in the house. His children and grandchildren, Rose's children visiting from Sacramento, Jacob's children who were already starting to take over the horse operation. All of them existed because two people had found each other at exactly the right moment, because a desperate widow had asked for mercy, and a lonely rancher had offered love. As the sun set over the California hills, casting the same golden light it had cast for decades, the Sullivan family gathered together, telling stories, sharing memories, and celebrating the lives of Quinn and Beatrice. Their love story had become family legend, passed down from generation to generation, a reminder that sometimes the darkest moments in our lives lead us to exactly where we are meant to be. Beatrice had arrived at the ranch with nothing but desperation and hope, pregnant and widowed and terrified. She had begged for mercy, expecting at most a meal and a night's shelter. Instead, she had found a home, a family, and a love that had sustained her through 40 years of life. Quinn had been alone, resigned to a solitary existence when she appeared. He had offered mercy, but in return had received purpose, joy, and a fullness of life he had never imagined possible. Together, they had built something that would last long after they were gone. A family rooted in love, kindness, and the belief that we are called to help those in need, because you never know when a simple act of mercy might change not just one life, but generations of lives to come. The story of Quinn and Beatrice Sullivan became part of the folklore of Hangtown and the surrounding area, told and retold over the years, sometimes embellished, sometimes simplified, but always coming back to the same essential truth: that love can be found in the most unexpected places, and that the courage to ask for help and the generosity to give it freely can transform the world in ways we cannot begin to predict. Their great-grandchildren would one day tell their children about the brave widow who walked for 2 days to find help, and the kind rancher who gave her everything she needed without asking for anything in return. They would talk about how their family started with an act of mercy that became a love story, and how that love story became a legacy of kindness that continued through the generations. And on quiet evenings, when family gathered at the old ranch house, now preserved as a family heritage site, they would stand on the porch where Quinn and Beatrice had spent so many evenings together, watching the same sunsets over the same hills, and they would feel the presence of that enduring love, the foundation upon which their entire family had been built. The sun set fully now, and the family settled in for the evening, the house warm with lamplight and conversation, exactly as it had been in Quinn and Beatrice's time. Outside, the land stretched out under the stars, peaceful and prosperous, a testament to two people who had found each other when they needed it most, and who had built a love strong enough to last through the ages and beyond. Their story complete, their love immortal in the hearts and lives of those they left behind.